guys, sorry to interrupt your video. Just a quick plea, subscribe to my channel please. If you haven't done it already, subscribe. Tell your friends, subscribe. Thanks. Pelican. Right. Okay. Pelican. Let me give you a bit of history on this. Let's take a bog standard traffic light. The bog standard traffic light was red, red and amber, green. Right? Fine. But originally, traffic lights were put on a timer. So back in the 70s and 80s, there was nothing to do. And when I was a kid, because there was nothing to do, there was no internet, Channel 4 didn't even start until 1982, right? So there was nothing to do apart from run around and hit each other with sticks. So part of the entertainment factor for the 1970s and 80s was to press the button on a traffic light, stop all the traffic and laugh whilst you're hiding in a bush. Such is life, right? Now, because there was a timer, it might be 20 seconds, so the traffic just sits there, they've got a red light, and then they wait for the amber light, then it goes green, then you can carry on again. Fine. But that means they're sitting around for no reason whatsoever. So what they decided to do is they created a Pelican Crossing. And as we can see here, Pelican was from Pedestrian Light Controlled Crossing. So it's Pedestrian Light Controlled Crossing. So it was a Pelican, and that morphed into Pelican Crossing. But what they did is they put a flashing amber light phase in rather than a solid amber light phase, just like a zebra crossing. And on a zebra crossing, you can go if the lights are flashing, but there's nobody on the crossing. So what it did was they said, well, if somebody presses the button and then there's nobody there, as soon as the light starts to flash, you may go again. It's the same as a zebra crossing. And it meant the traffic could get flowing quicker. Right, so it's just an upgrade. It was just put a little flashing amber light phase, put a zebra crossing inside a traffic light. That's what a Pelican Crossing is. And there's a pelican so that everybody knows that it is a huge bird. Right? I'll come back to that. Puffin Crossing. Teeny weeny bird. Well, compared to the pelican. Right? Now, puffins are a brand new way of being awesome. And what they've got is they've got these cameras, these infrared lights on the top of the camera looking at the pedestrian crossing. And what they do is when you press the button, the lights change, and if there's a pedestrian on the crossing, it just keeps the traffic light on red until the pedestrians have cleared the crossing. At that point, it then goes, oh fine, red and amber, green, off you all pop, right? But it'll change how long the traffic lights are on red. So if you've got somebody with a disability, a wheelchair going across, or an old lady with a Zimmer frame crossing the lights and she takes a long time to get across, the traffic light will wait for her. Alright? Now, because the traffic light knows if there's somebody there, they've taken the flashing light phase out. So you aren't allowed to make the decision anymore. The traffic light controls everything, which I suppose makes more sense. But it does mean that if it was back in the 70s and 80s and they had those traffic lights, I could come along, press the button, the light would go to red, it would go, oh, there's no one here, and go straight back to green again. So my fun would have been curtailed back in the 70s and 80s. Thank God they weren't around. There's nothing else to do. So a puffin gets you going quicker from a car's point of view, but does not have a flashing amber light phase in it. Alright? Because you aren't allowed to make the decision anymore. The traffic light tells you when you can or cannot go. And just so you know, it was a pedestrian user-friendly interface. They're stretching it, aren't they? Right, so that became Puffin. Da-da-da. But it looks at the pedestrians. Now, how to remember which one? This was the original mobile telephone communication device. And then this is the new and improved version. Obviously, nowadays, phones are getting big again. Here's my iPhone. It's all whopping up, right? But generally, if you think about the first computer, that took up an entire room. And now there's more processing power in a calculator than there was that they took them to the moon, right? So the way to think about it is, if generally with technology, the way to think about it is the bigger the thing, the older it is, because generally it gets smaller and better, right? So now if we go back to the birds that I was talking about, the pelican is old technology because it's big, and the puffin, which is a little bird, is the new and exciting technology. Therefore, the thick one that didn't know if there was any pedestrians on the crossing is the pelican, and the one that knows if there's someone there is the puffin. Right. That's how you know which one it is. Because they'll say you're at a traffic light and there's a flashing amber light phase. What are you at? Well, the only one that's got a flashing amber light phase and traffic light is obviously a pelican. Because he's a big old bird. Right. Then you get a Pegasus Crossing or Equestrian Crossing. Right. Now, these are for horsey faces. And they've got the buttons on the wall there. Now, it could well be that you've got a button at different heights. So basically, they put wood around. I don't know if you can see that. When we zoom in, there you go. So we've got wood around here. So they can try to contain the horse. Not that it'll work. And then they can walk across. Either on the horse or next to it. So it's basically, it's for horsey faces. And they might have buttons at two different heights. Okay. Modern ones have still got sensors on the top, so they behave a bit like a puffin anyway, but they're just for horses. Right. Toucan! Here's a toucan. Not that it's important, but hey ho, that's a toucan. Right. Toucans, from a car point of view, we don't give a monkeys. But from a pedestrian point of view, we do. And it depends upon this box here. Now, if this box, which is the weight box for the pedestrians, if it's got a bicycle on it and a pedestrian, then it's a toucan. And I remember it, that Toucan Cross, i.e. two wheels, two modes of transport. That's a toucan. From a driver's point of view, it's just a traffic light that either tells you can go or you can't. We don't care if it's a toucan or not, do we? But the theory test questions again will come up with who can use a toucan? Cyclists and pedestrians. The only difference is, of course, if you've got a Toucan crossing, because it's designed for a cyclist, you may cycle across the crossing. Whereas if it's only a pedestrian crossing, you have to get off your bike and walk across, technically. Alright. Staggered Crossing. Right, now, all it is an island in the middle of the road. Got one near Farm Sixth Form, actually. Where you can get a load of horrible oiks queuing in the middle. You smelly teenagers. Sitting in the middle there, spreading COVID, right? Now, the actual traffic light connected to it could be any type. Any type. So a staggered crossing could be pelicans, puffins, toucans, pegasus, could be anything, right? But that's a staggered crossing. Next, how to approach a traffic light. Right, now, this is just my tip. It's not official, you don't have to do this, right? But of course, if you're approaching a traffic light and it has been green for a while, then probably it's going to change red. Reasonable? Okay. Now, what I do, if I'm coming up to pedestrian crossings, I look at the boxes. See the yellow box there and there? So I have a look at those and I see whether or not it says anything. You might even be able to see the one on the other side of the road over here. And if somebody has pressed the button, you might have the red circle around the button or a little red box, or it'll say wait or something like that. But it'll be an indication on that thing that you might be able to see that tells you if somebody has pressed the button. Now, obviously, if no one has pressed the button, that traffic light is not going to change. If it's a pedestrian. Obviously, if it's just coming up to a normal traffic light at a junction, then it might change, right? But look for that box. Now, what I do is, based upon the speed of my approach, I will need a certain amount of time to stop my car in. So what I'm doing here in this diagram is I have decided, as I'm coming along here doing my 30 miles an hour, I pick a place on the floor that I think to myself, if I get to that point, then I am now too close to be able to stop in time. So even if the light changes, I'm just going to keep going. And if I haven't got to that point, so if I get in, so let's take the red line. So if I get into this section, then I'm too close, so I'm just going to keep driving. But if I'm in this section and the light changes, then I will hit the brake and stop. Fine. Because a lot of people, when they're learning to drive, well, even when they've passed actually, tend to hit the brake or come off it. They're not quite sure if they should stop or go, or some people hit the accelerator and try to dive through before. It's a good way of getting a good kicking from the examiner if you do that. They do not like people accelerating at a pedestrian crossing when pedestrians are just about to walk out in front of it. No, 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 no. That is not safe driving. Right? So whilst you're not breaking any laws, they'll fail you on safety grounds, depending upon the circumstance. Now, if we were to stop suddenly and we have someone near to us behind, there's a chance that they smash into the back of our car. Don't want that. So I would pick this red line because I can stop suddenly if there's no one behind me. But if I had a bus behind me or a motorbike, I can't stop that quickly for risk of being damaged. Therefore, I will draw my fictitious line further away. You still need to be realistic because you still need to be able to stop by that traffic light if it goes red. But you do, or you will need to give yourself a bit more room to stop in because you've got to allow time for the bloke behind you to react as well. Alright? Yeah. So it's really important when you're coming up to a traffic light that you know who is behind you. I mean, it's just important that you should know who's behind you full stop. In all of driving, all the time, you should know who's behind you and to the side of you. And then you can just deal with stuff knowing what's there. But, assuming that you're one of these normal people that just stares out the front window, when you're approaching a junction, see it in distance that it's coming up, start working out what everyone else behind you is doing, then draw a line on the road, which could be the start of a zigzag, could be a paper bag, could be a drain cover, could be anything. Obviously not something mobile like a pigeon, right? And then if you get to it and the light changes, keep going. If you haven't got to it, stop. Alright, that's my tip to get through. So here we go. Here's your summary of your pedestrian crossings. Zebra. Flashing light. Yes, it's the one with the flashing ball on the top. Is it intelligent? No, not in the slightest. It has no idea if there's any pedestrian there, but it's a flashing amber light, which means if there's anyone on the crossing, you have to stop. As soon as the crossing's clear, you can carry on driving. Lollipop. It's the woman that wafts out her pizza slicer and presumably she's intelligent, but she controls the traffic. Pelican. So for pedestrians, flashing light phase. Yes, there is a flashing light phase because it's stupid. It is not intelligent, just like the zebra. It doesn't know if there's anybody there, so it puts a flashing amber light phase in it so you can go early. Puffin. Yes, that is intelligent. It knows if there's somebody there. Little bird, intelligent, and it knows what's going on. Toucan. It's probably because toucans are quite a modern thing. They are normally puffin lights, but on a toucan crossing, if you see what I mean. So it's an intelligent crossing that allows bicycles to go across because two can cross. Then you've got staggered. It's just a central island, and it depends what traffic light you've got connected to it. And you've got Pegasus or equestrian crossing, and it's basically a puffin for horses. That's it. Hope that explains what pedestrian crossings are doing and how to approach your traffic lights. That should answer any of the questions that pop up in the theory test. Thank you.